Hi there. So, I know I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I just wanted to talk about the Great Resignation. Okay, everyone's talking about, because of COVID, everyone's quitting their job. Uh, they dread going to work. They can't pay their bills. They can't live anywhere. They have to have 10 roommates. I've been there. I've had to have 3 roommates before, and all I got out of it was a room and a smoke filled apartment because it's too expensive to have, a good life. And this might be third world problems, but I mean, a job for $7 an hour in the United States doesn't cut it. $7 an hour in other countries probably would cut it. But what we're seeing is that, you know, people who own companies, they're making all the money. Well, why is that? Well, if this video reaches just one person who's not happy with their job, I think that this video will be a success because here's the deal. If you work for a company and say it's $15 an hour, okay, and after 6 months you get a week's vacation, and after a year you get 2 weeks vacation, and let's say after that year you also get 3 sick days or something like that, okay. And let's say the job is you make buttons. You make buttons. You go to your factory, the work, and then you have a little machine and you press it down with some plastic inside of it and it makes a button. And your first day you make 10 buttons. And after a week you make 20 buttons. And at the end of the year you're making, per day, let's say after a year working there, you make 1,000 buttons in a day. Okay, and each of these buttons, let's say they cost a penny. And in one day, if you make 1,000 pennies, that's not a lot of money. But let's say, just for the heck of it, you know, your boss out of that, uh, $1,000, a thousand, let's say a penny or a button costs $1, and after 1,000 in a day, you make $1,000 a day. But when you go to work and you look at your pay stub, of course taxes are going to come out and hopefully insurance and everything. But at the end of the day, of that $1,000 you make, you only make $100. So you get $100, but there's $900 left over because of those 1,000 buttons you made. Where does that $900 go? Well, first of all, that $900 will go towards your sick days. And that $900 every day is going to go towards your vacation days. Okay? And that's great that you get those things. It's a good thing. But the kicker is that the money that your employer is making to give you those sick days so that you can take those days off, you have to essentially earn those days. That money that you are getting paid for those days off, that's already your money. That is your money that you made by going to work and making a button and making 1,000 buttons a day. So it's almost like your employer has a little secret savings account of all the profits you make. And then he says, well, you've made me enough profit that you've now earned 3 days of sick and a week of vacation. And they are not going to do that until you make a certain amount of money for them, which is preset of how much you're going to make in a year. So let's just throw a ballpark number out there. Let's say in a year you make your company $50,000 of profit, okay, but you only made $20,000 this year. You made $20,000, your employer made $50,000 off of you, okay, and just throwing it out there, okay, and we can all agree that that's how it works. And they're in that position because they started the company and they can make the rules. So how can you get out of this scam, basically, and get all of your money? Okay, so instead of making $100 a day, even though you made $1,000 of buttons, how do you get all of the $1,000? Well, a lot of times people are just going to say, well, then you start your own button company. Okay, well, let's say that you go home and you save up enough money and you bought yourself a button maker and you're making the buttons on your own. And you realize that you can make 1,000 buttons at home, but you don't have anyone to sell it to. So then you start talking around and you find the people who are going to buy buttons, and they say, oh, yeah, we need buttons, and we buy $1,000 of buttons a day. And you say, well, I'll sell you the same amount of buttons, but I'll sell it to you for $999 instead of $1,000. And you win. You win that contract. And now the next time that they need buttons, they ask you, and they save $1. It's hard for a lot of people to understand this. It's not as hard for me as a trades worker, as a tradesman. Because when I first started off, I was doing little houses for people and building brick walls for small houses, and we'll be on a job site for a day or two, get it done, and I get a paycheck for $300. Okay? But my boss gets the paycheck for $3,000, even though he was never even on the job. I did all the work, but he gets all the profit. And when I became successful enough and started to do these small little houses for friends, family, people who knew me through the grapevine, I started to make the $3,000. Okay. So I understood that I can compete with my employer. A lot of people don't have that avenue to compete with their employer. But what you do have is a constitutional right to form a union, and your union is a group of people that are within maybe a company or a group of companies who do the same thing. And if they can get together and they can say to their employers, look, we know how this works. We know that we make $1,000 worth of buttons a day, but you only give me $100 a day. Okay. Of all my possible union members, we all bought our own button makers, and we can make our own buttons. Okay. And if we all quit today and make our own buttons, we know that you wouldn't have any employees and you would go out of business. Okay. We're going to propose to you an idea. You either pay us what we're worth, or we quit and we'll go figure out our own way to make money, and maybe it's going to be making buttons ourselves. Okay, that's a lot of the times how it works in the trades, because you got a group of 5 guys who are building houses and buildings, and their employer is only paying them $10 an hour. But each of these guys are confident enough that they can say, look, we can get rid of our boss. Let's just charge this homeowner or this company or whoever's building a building and using our skill set to build this stuff. And let's go in there, each of it as our own self-employed person, build it ourselves, and we'll all make a lot more money, and nobody's going to be above the next person getting all the profit as the owner of the company. So it's almost like we could all be our own little companies, and then we just bill the same, and we all come out on top that way. So how are we going to get an employer to follow along with that and form a union and let us have fair pay, and to not lose his employees because we know that we could do it without you, or we just don't want to do it at all because we know that you're not paying us what you're supposed to be paying us? Well, you have a constitutional right to form a union. And then you can enter into an agreement protected by law to then say, this is how much we're getting paid. This is what our insurance is going to be. This is what we want. Do you agree or don't agree? If you don't agree, we quit. Okay? That's the beauty of being in a union. And we all as Americans have that right. Okay? So instead of everyone resigning, a lot of people could just get together, team together, using social media, campaigning, organizing, could form a union within whatever you're doing. It could be Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart, whatever, but you got to join together and unionize to fight against this problem that America is facing. Just a thought.